אוקיי, תודה רבה, דני. לא רק על ההבהרות, הבאמת מאירות עיניים לגבי המושג האנאקטמנט, אלא גם על האופן החווייתי שבו הכנסת אותנו לחוויה של המטפל בתוך הסיטואציה של האנאקטמנט, וגם על כל ההכנסה המאוד התייחסותית של כל הנושא של קבלת אחריות ומה קורה בין שנינו ברגע הזה. Dr. Gurusmark, would you like to comment and to respond to the discussions before we open it to just a few questions from the audience?
Okay, can I respond? Yes?
Yes, please.
Okay, Ami and Danny, thank you very, very much. And I've been looking forward to your comments, and there's just so much, and I wish I was there and we could hang out and talk, and we'd have a lot to say, and just super interesting. I'm not quite sure how long I have, but I'll say a couple of things because it was the most recent part. I mean, I think, Danny, your point about the aggression in the treatment is really, really important. And the case as written, I only hear it now, actually cries out for some addressing in the treatment of the degree of aggression. And you would exactly ask, but where was that, right? And because it wasn't the focus of the way what I was trying to convey, it makes me think of some of the, it's been a long journey for a few years. And I think one of the things actually that was really helped Alan settle in was the degree to which he could be aggressive in the treatment. It was too much to include it, but because it's a very important point. I was thinking as you were talking, I remember when we were just in the early stages, and he came into my office and he didn't close the door to my office quite completely. He closed it, but it was still ajar. And I got up and pushed the door to close it. And I mean, the guy lost it. He was absolutely, he would lose it at work and with people in the park and so on, and was just enraged, saying, you think I don't know how to close the door? What am I, a bloody, an idiot? How dare you? And it was just like a lot of his affect, just very volatile, very unbounded, and very much, you're treating me like my mother, right? Everything I do is wrong. You're just like my mother. And that, we had a lot of moments like that. Nowadays, it doesn't feel so volatile and wild because we spent a good deal of time with that. Nowadays, he will tell me immediately, now I'm angry with you. Now I'm angry with you. And so it's very, and generally, there's a good reason. Recently, I was back in the office after COVID, before we had to go out again, whatever. And I was in the office and noticed that my plant needed watering. And he noticed me looking at my plant, right? That's where we're at now. And he was like, what are you doing? Where did you go? And you're right, I'm furious. What the hell kind of therapist? So the anger is there. It does not feel toxic or wild at this point. It actually feels like he's really telling me, and I can tell him whatever I need to tell him in that moment. And it's part of being able to access, if you like, different self states in a much more integrated kind of like, we'll have an angry moment, I did something wrong, then we try and work with it. So at the beginning, it was just explosive. But it's a really important point, and I didn't want, it's too much to include in the whole case. It also, in fact, maybe I'll pick it up when we talk, if we get to talk some more on Sunday, because I have some more thinking about different kinds of transferences. And I'm going to try and link some of those moments to Laplanche and filled in versus hollowed out transferences. But that'll come, that's something I'm trying to sort out. there's a lot of points you guys made, which I find really, there's a really important conversation to be had about enactment and dissociation and other ideas about enactment. And of course, and Danny, you say it, and it's so right. Every concept in our field, as soon as there's a concept, every person who uses it in their own way. If we be kind to ourselves, we say we're all Winnicottians and we're all recreating the object all the time. And put it not so kind, it's like we do what we want with concepts. But I guess, is it useful? Does it create something useful clinically that you can then use and feel as real? And, I think nowadays there is an interest in enactment as, Lou Aaron and Galit were talking about enactment as practicing for the future, right? Which was looking at a positive side, that enactment, not instead of, but alongside the dissociative aspects of enactment. And I think that we get caught in either it is or it is not enactment. Where I like to think about different layers and registers at the same time, So one of the things about enactment, it's not, is there something happening or is there not something happening? Is there thought or no thought, right? Which is a way we can often talk about it. I think that things are more layered and more interesting, and so that we find, and this in fact is something Freud and Fleiss were struggling with when Freud was writing The Project in 1880 something, amazingly, about how does something become a thought? How does an experience become a thought? And he was differentiating between word presentations and thing presentations. But I mention it to say, one of the things we say about enactment is that it comes in the enacted dimension, the dimension of behavior, and the dimension of something that is evoked in the treatment. There's something that, because thought can come in formulated thought, it can come in the presentation rather than a representation. It can come in. I like the idea of different registers of thought. So you think in clear, formulated thought, you think your body thinks and represents, the field thinks and represents, even if it is not available to the person. There are so many registers and aspects that it's not thought or no thought. And that's one of the things that I have found so helpful in thinking about that, if you like, a dimension of enactment, not what is enactment, because that closes us, but a dimension of enactment, which is the representation, right? And it comes in the thingness of it. It comes in something like a collapsed experience of fetish, or it comes in an uncanny feeling of fear in the analyst, or it comes in forgetting the session, forgetting your patient. You know that it comes in many different ways, and that is linked to Christopher Bolas's ideas about the drive to represent, that everyone has a drive to represent their selves, which means their history, their idiom, their being, and that is thwarted by either trauma or the absence of the transformational object who can make experience real. Sorry if I'm throwing in a lot at once, but the gist of it is, I was so touched by the drive to represent, so that when in an enactment, when one ends up in a crazy crisis in the treatment, or a struggle, or a dead period in the treatment, an empty period in the treatment, I'm interested in what is emerging, not only what's being stopped to emerge, because often what is speaking is what has yet to have voice, if that makes sense. So that dead objects might come to sit in the treatment, and it can feel like we're both dissociated. And on the one dimension, that's a true statement, but it is also it's not only the absence of something, it's the presence of something. So for instance, in a recent relational book.
Unfortunately, we're really out of time. It's 3 minutes after 9. I'm really sorry. But we will have a lot of time tomorrow.
Yeah, because I wanted to respond to Ami, who was brilliant.
Okay. So
I love the idea of
a few more minutes. All right, let's hear.
No, I just want to say it's a wonderful idea. Ami, Alan in a group, and I think all of you know, because many of you here do group and individual work, right? So it is always such a good question. That's all I want to say, and let's leave it at that because of time.
Yeah. We can imagine Alan in a group being aggressive and what happens in the group setting with that. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we'll see you tomorrow.